Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to quick shout out to June. I think when you used the term red ocean in the U.S., you were referring to ESPN. So it's the first time I've heard that reference, but I think we'll keep that. I wanted to get this started with a couple of slides just showing examples of sport. And I guess I'm going to go to the panel and ask the question, who can identify where this is being played? Conor? Any guesses?
Looks like China.
You're right. So this is an NBA game in Shanghai last year. Next slide. How about this one? Any guesses? Yep. NFL game in Wembley. All right, the next slide. So Jim, this is one for you. You're pretty much going to nail this one, right?
I hope it's New York City.
Right. So this is the Yankee Stadium in New York City. And this one's an easy one.
Indonesia.
Right. So I think one of the things that's, as we introduce the panel here that's interesting is the definition of local. I think local is one of these words, like new media and digital, which is beginning to lose its meaning. It just is used arbitrarily, and I'm not sure we know exactly what local means anymore. So just to quickly go through the panel, I'm joined on my right by Rohit De Silva, who's the head of content and communications for Fox International Channel, specifically on sport here in Asia. C.K. Lee, head of Astro. Jim Small oversees Major League Baseball for Asia Pacific, and Conor Woods, who's the MD for Setanta Sports for Asia Pacific. So Jim, what's your definition of local? I mean, you've been in Japan for a number of years, pretty much established as a sport. The general sentiment, what we hear from the audience, even a bit of comments yesterday, is Major League Baseball is really just about Japan, maybe Korea, maybe Taiwan.
Right, and I think that's, as a rights holder, I'm trying to do everything I can to blow up that delineation between us being a global and a local sport. If we're going to be profitable, if we're going to have a sustainable business, we have to be viewed as a local sport. I used to work at Nike, and among the cups of Kool-Aid that I drank was one that said all sports are local, and it's true. We care about our teams, we care about our sports, we care about our players, and you add to that this amazing thing that we all benefit from. Everyone in this room benefits from. It's our relationships with our customers that are based on a completely absurd relationship. Being a sports fan is not a normal thing. We invest so much of our time and our money and our emotions in something we can't control. And yet we love it. We love sports, and that's how we engage with this brand. So you add that to, if we're going to be successful, we have to connect with that fan locally. Now, in places like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, I'd say Australia, I think we've done a good job of that. That's driven a large part by, in Japan, the game's been played there 100 years, and, Ichiro Suzuki plays for the New York Yankees, and Yu Darvish plays for the Texas Rangers. Now, can we bring the rest of Asia along? As I think June said, Asia is a myriad of different markets, different languages. We can't look at it all the same. So what we've done is to pick and choose a few markets. I think in the next couple of years we'll know if we're successful. We've really focused on China, specifically trying to build major league players from China. We're going to know that in the next couple of years. I think we have 5 or 6 players that will play professionally in the next 18 months, and can that drive our business and our broadcast business, our sponsorship business, and our licensing business. So we'll see.
Rohit, what's your definition of local? I mean, we talked a bit before, and I think everyone had a different definition of local.
I think when you look at local, there are a couple of ways to analyze it. One is, if you look at local sport, you could take the view that local is a sport which is truly native or just played in that particular country, and which has then become so powerful and the number one sport in that country. So if you look at Australia, you have Aussie rules football, which is really the big thing out there. And the second level of local is You have sports which are played across continents, football being the biggest example, where you have it's been played across decades, across centuries, and it's become pretty much like the mainstream sport or national sport in many countries. So I think it's depends on which way you look at it, but in the context of what we're talking about today.
Can you speak into the microphone?
In the context of what we're talking about today, I think the focus is more on to what level are local leagues or international sport going to build more and more audiences and emotional connections across various markets.
But do you shift your investment? So, obviously the history of ESS and Fox Sports, and although June says that things are ultimately maybe going to change, it has been spending a fair bit of money on sports that originate elsewhere. So do you see that investment shifting, where there's more investment in sports originating in Asia?
I think it's no one-size-fits-all answer. I think it's a market-by-market decision that we take. If you look at what we've done in Japan, we have invested very heavily in local baseball, whereas Fox Sports channel in Japan is predominantly local baseball. So that's one route we have taken. In the Netherlands, we have an investment and majority ownership of the league. So I think in Asia, it will be a market-by-market decision that we make. And as June pointed out earlier, we have to become a lot better at what we do overall in presenting a product which audiences are going to accept and grow on. And that, is something which might involve, in certain cases, going to and developing truly native local sport. In certain cases, it might be, making a bigger investment in league of a major global sport, but a local league in a particular market.
CK, Astro's obviously been a heavy investor in EPL over the years and really built growth on the platform. You're now at about 50% market penetration. Are you pretty much done? Is there no more to invest in?
For international sports, I think we're almost there. But what I'm trying to say is for local sport, we have also started to invest heavily in local sports. We have dedicated 24/7 domestic local sports channel called Astro Arena. It's now 3 years old. We invest about $30 million a year running the channel, getting rights, doing the production of the content. And 3 years ago, we went to the Olympic Council of Malaysia and say, hey, we want to do this because we want to celebrate local Malaysian sports, build sporting heroes, and build Malaysia to be a sporting nation. And then there's actually a channels for all the 46 sports associations in Malaysia, and adopt us. That was 3 years ago. And yes, it's a long-term investment because I think like the earlier sessions, the monetization is not there, but we're seeing some sort of sponsorship coming in because it's a challenge to try to drive the sponsor to the perception of local sports versus the international sports.
But how do you grow subscribers? I mean, is it going to be from local sport development, or is it going to be from international rights?
We believe that first we have to build out the local sports industry, and Astro Arena will be the big piece of puzzle in the whole ecosystem of building this local sports industry. As and when we get more fans to watch local sports, to care about local sports, the sponsors will come to the Sports Association, the sponsors will come to Astro, and then from there, then we'll start building it. Like I say, it's a long-term process.
You made a comment to me about the growth in terms of subs potentially is going to be more in the local sport development, as in the mainstream audience, and you have the audience already for the EPL. There's no more people to add on that front.
Okay, for Astro, we are in a situation now that we are more than 50% of the market, and our next target market segment are people of the mass nature, slightly below average income, and they're really into their local sports. For example, the local domestic Malaysian Football League, the local hockey, the local motorcycle races and all that stuff. So it will resonate with, some of the people that we're trying to acquire for the next 3 to 5 years. And we basically have a level of sports for all type of customers with different viewing needs or different purchasing power.
So Conor, for Setanta, I mean, you've been in Asia now for, I think yourself, just under 10 years, and Setanta continues to grow across the region, but it's also sometimes a bit of a struggle, right? I mean, it's hard to get the full distribution all the times on packages. You're in a space where there's local sports channels that are very strong, regional sports channels that are getting stronger. I mean, where do you guys fit in terms of that chain?
Well, Setanta's business model in all the markets we're in is to take sports rights that are maybe underexploited and create value from them. And in Asia in particular, we're in the position of representing and broadcasting a global sport that doesn't have much of a local presence at the moment. And just as background, for some people in the room might not be familiar with Setanta Sports, about 3 years ago we looked at opportunities in Asia, and we saw that rugby was a sport that seemed to have reached a low point in terms of broadcast coverage, and we acquired the rights to all the best rugby in the world and launched a channel. And over the last 3 years we've been very focused on distribution, and the channel's now in 18 countries. We've also launched HD, and we've launched a second screen service in partnership with Perform. So what
Conor, I think we've got a 30-second video to play us, just to give everybody a little
Sure.
insight on Setanta quickly. Can we have the video, guys?
I think the main purpose of that video is just to teach people how to spell Setanta. But like I said, we're now, what we're doing with rugby is delivering an audience, because the channel is now well distributed. It's available in really high quality in HD, and also we're giving the audience the opportunity to watch it whatever way they want, whether that's on their tablet or their smartphone. And long term, we're going to have to look at how we can engage with the local audience. And the advantage for us, I guess, is that rugby has been quite forward looking with regards to Asia. Asia's going to have its first Rugby World Cup in 2019. There are grassroots events that HSBC has been very involved in looking at growing rugby in Asia. And even Super Rugby, which is a Champions League style competition for teams from South Africa, Australia and New Zealand, is currently looking at basing 1 to 2 teams in Asia from 2016 onwards. And I think that's that's a very progressive outlook from rugby as a sport, and anything that's good for rugby is good for our channel in Asia.
So Jim, in terms of Major League Baseball, I mean, we heard some comments yesterday. I think Andrew made a couple comments of WSG about not having exhibition games played here at the Sports Hub. You've done both, I think, with MLB. You've done exhibition games, preseason games, regular season games. I mean, are we now at the point where all the games are going to matter? If they're played in Asia,
right? And it really depends on the market. In Japan, we've played games that mattered since 2000 every 4 years. But now we're also reintroducing an all-star format because some of our fans there told us that they want to be able to see some of our top players playing in an all-star format. I think kind of the best example of where we are right now is Australia. We started investing 25 years ago in Australia, just as we were starting our international business, and we basically looked at Australia's low-hanging fruit. There was a love of sports, a connection to U.S. culture, and so we started investing. And the way we did it was to go to the rugby clubs, and rugby is traditionally a summer sport in Australia, and they were losing kids to other sports in the winter. We helped them introduce baseball into the into the cricket program. And so those kids weren't leaving cricket, and they were staying with cricket year round. We're at the point now where we've got a good business there. We've got Major League players from Australia, and next year we're going to open our season at the Sydney Cricket Ground. So we're going to bring the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Arizona Diamondbacks to play. So market by market is different, but I think we can still do both.
And how does the league feel about that? I mean, the league is committed to saying we're going to play meaningful games. Teams are going to go to Asia. I mean, is it a big process or a bit of a challenge to get the teams out to the region?
It's a challenge, just like any other sport. Our sport, the people that play it and coach it are creatures of habit, so they don't like change. But thankfully, I think our owners and many of our players see the big picture now and understand that that's important, and it's an important part of our evolution.
So what success is success having more people in Asia watch Major League Baseball games, or having more leagues developing in Asia that are meaningful?
Success at the end of the day is increasing our revenues, and we do that. We have 4 revenue streams. It's media, it's sponsorship, it's licensed products, and it's events. The events make money, but the additional add-on on that is we see spikes in our ratings after we play games. We see spikes in our licensed product sales, and it's really an opportunity. For instance, in Japan, our games come on at 9 o'clock in the morning. These are the only times that our fans can watch our games in prime time. That games that matter. So it's really important for our broadcasters to show that we're committed to them in that market. We're going to bring our players and our teams there to play.
But is your preference as Major League Baseball's focus obviously is on MLB? So whether the Japan Baseball League develops or the Taiwanese Baseball League develops, is that really not your concern, or is it?
It is our concern in that we don't view the local professional leagues as anything other than a strategic partner. And if we work together and we create a bigger pie, our share of that pie becomes bigger. The enemy for us is really kids not playing sports or doing other things with their time. So we've all been talking about how our kids consume content and consume, what they do with their free time. If we lose kids to something other than sports, that's a problem for us. But we work very closely with the leagues, particularly in Korea and Japan, in helping them learn from what we've done in marketing. And that extends into the broadcast realm as well.
So Mike, just before we continue, we just wanted to bring it back to local for a second. I know CK had a video to give us a little bit of an overview of the Arena channel.
What we do on Astro Arena.
Yeah, sorry, we missed it earlier on, so I apologise. So let's play it now, please. CK, maybe just tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing with Arena.
Yeah, of course. I think in the region is the only dedicated local domestic sports channel, and there's a good mix of content in it, not just live games. We have magazine shows, we have local news bulletin 3 times a day, we got talk shows, we have social media shows, and then we have the same presence online too, on arena.my, which is our website. So, overall it provides, the destination for all local Malaysian sports fans to go to, on air, on digital.
And do you think, in terms of development of sports in Malaysia, that there's more participation, more kids playing? Are you seeing a change? I mean, you've seen the market evolve quite a bit over the years. I mean, are we at the point where now the participation levels are up to the point where we're going to see, stronger, better, higher performing athletes coming from the market?
Yes, we're seeing some traction. You can see there are more fans coming on to our viewers to view the programs, to come onto our website, to look at the stories. And it's good that because right now you get fans associating themselves with teams, they know the players, profiles, and all that. And more importantly, you can see the sponsors slowly coming in, which is a very important point for us because this is local sports and it's just at our own backyard. You know.
But in terms of the market, are more kids playing sports? Is it now more of a priority for families to say, you need to play sport, you need to participate? I mean, this is the issue we keep hearing about in Asia. It's not enough of a priority, you know. And
yeah, that's one of the objective of Astro Arena is we want to build sporting heroes, you know. Athletes that kids can look up to, for example, Lee Chong-wei, the number 1 badminton player in the world. He's very well liked, and I'm sure he has inspired many kids right now to pick up badminton. And parents will think that, hey, this guy is a millionaire right now. So at least there's something in there for sports, just not academic.
Rohit, do you think, from a Fox Sports standpoint, that part of your role will be to, you know, foster some of that development? Do you see, you know, part of the mission is to get more participation, more interest level at the grassroots in sports, which is ultimately going to drive the interest of it? You know, I think we talk a lot about the U.S. or the U.K. or Australia, where there's high participation in sports, and it's seeded at a very early age. We're not seeing that in the scale we'd like to see it, obviously, in Asia. I mean, is that something that, you know, Fox can help develop in the markets?
Absolutely, that's the direction that we're taking. I think in each of our markets, we want to have a highly localized in-market sports presence. And I think the beauty of where we are positioned is we already have scaled operations across 14 markets. So, and then touching upon what you said earlier, where we all have to grow the overall viewership. And when in the earlier panel there was a question posed about where does sports fit into our overall portfolio. I think what we can do, the opportunity we have is to develop and further grow highly localized sports businesses, but through our various entertainment channels, and many of them are dubbed 100% versioned in local languages. We have 29 channels which are completely in local languages. We can really drive audiences, drive young kids to get excited. We have to do a lot, you know, like what CK said, we have to look at creating local heroes, highlight local stories, and this is something that we've done very well across all the other genres of channels that we operate in. And this is why we firmly believe that, you know, the sports business is going to be something that's going to enable us to grow our overall portfolio and grow our overall audience share.
So I guess flipping it around. So football, obviously the world's largest sport. I think Perform recently produced, Tim Holland, I'll give you guys a shout out in this, a sports survey, which was quite comprehensive. And I think the number was 1 billion football fans. Sorry, there's 1 billion sports fans and over half are football fans. So obviously a lot of that football is not played in Asia. You know. And does it really matter, Jim? I mean, does it matter ultimately that the games are down the street where you can drive or walk to? Is it more about the players playing on those teams? If the best league in the world is, you know, in England, then that's what people want to watch. Do you think it really matters that it has to be? Is local, again, really about the players, not necessarily where the games are played?
Well, was that to me? I'm sorry. I absolutely think this goes back to this, and I think somebody said yesterday that a Man U AC Milan game is going to rate well no matter what country it's aired in because it's must-see viewing. But I think that goes back to my point about it being local, is that there's a connection that the people in Singapore or Malaysia or someone has with those players, even though they've never stepped foot in Italy or in England. There's still that connection. So I would say that is local, and that's been driven by this passion for sports and this passion for, in this case, for European football. And quite frankly, I think that the broadcasters are the ones who do that. Again, our business is played, our games are played, 7,000 miles away. So we exist because of these guys. We exist in this market because of our media partners. So I think they help drive that passion and make that local connection. So even though you've never been to Milan, you're an AC fan, and that's you. Sports is very, very personal.
So Conor, do you think it matters? Do you think it's about the best sport? If you have local representation, that's going to increase ratings and value. Is it important that does it matter where the games are played?
Well, I'm based in Australia, where local sports dominate, and in fact, two of the biggest codes, Aussie Rules has no global presence, and rugby league is only played in one other country in the world, and it's an incredibly competitive sports market. And I think the perception sometimes is that Aussies love sport and Aussies love beer, so it's probably incredibly easy to get them interested in whatever sport you're showing. But actually, the broadcasters and the sponsors and the clubs work incredibly hard because they're all competing against each other all the time. And a good example at the moment in Australia is there's a battle of hearts and minds going on in Western Sydney. And Western Sydney is where the immigrant population are coming into Australia. The majority of people were born overseas, and a lot of them are from Asia and don't necessarily have a direct connection with a sport. And the Aussie Rules, for instance, have set up a team called the Greater Western Sydney Giants. They don't win any games. Nobody goes to the games at the moment, but they're in there for the long term. They know that this is the future, and they're going to work as hard as they can to develop that sport and have a new generation of fans.
So CK, in terms of Astro, I mean, how, again, as you think about development of local sports, as you think about value, do you see the future of Astro being more about local, or is it going to be bigger and bigger investment in EPL, which is going to continue to drive things?
I think we are starting to see some shift into local sports, especially in our territory of Malaysia. Like I say, for us to monetize sports, local sports right now comes first. You can be at the event, you have access to the teams, you have access to the players, you have all the touch points there, for the fans, for the sponsors and all that. So although the sponsorship value between international sports and local sports, it's still pretty far apart, but we're seeing the gap moving closer and closer.
Mike, so let's throw it to the floor maybe for a second and see whether we've got any questions out there. Anybody want to say something to our esteemed panel? Any questions out there? Andy Jackson from 442 Magazine.
You talked a fair bit about localization. What about personalization of packages of content? About personalization, which we've seen in a lot of other areas of media where the shift has gone from we'll tell you what is available for you to consume to I'm in control of what I consume and when. That on-demand sort of generation. And a good example being potentially the English Premier League, where fans like myself that don't support a team in the Big Six, I would probably pay a premium to be able to watch every one of my team's games when I chose on whatever device I wanted to. And how far away are we from that? Because that's potentially where we're reaching the ceiling as just pure broadcast rights. Where is the premium going to come from there to keep that inflation going? And that's maybe one way where you put consumers in control of what they consume and they're willing to pay a premium for that.
Jim, do you want to take that?
Yeah, we're there now in the United States through MLB.com. You can localize everything, and so I happen to be a fan of the Boston Red Sox, which lost to Mike's Baltimore Orioles about 2 hours ago. Not that I was checking my smartphone throughout the earlier presentations, but I identify myself as a Red Sox fan on MLB.com. I get content constantly sent to me. I can watch any game that I want. I can pop in on a chat session with other Red Sox fans to lament the loss. So we absolutely tailor it, which started in the U.S. market, but it really is. It's at its biggest advantage here because as a displaced fan, I can't get that anywhere else. Not the in-depth. I can watch it on, in Japan, I can watch the game on NHK, and there'll be some commentary afterwards, but I can't get into it as deeply as I want to. So I think that's essential in keeping that fan experience the way we need it to be.
Right.
Well, I think what we're doing is we're aggressively building our Fox Sports Play service, which is we have an authenticated player, which does provide to a fair degree various options. So for Formula One, we have 5 different feeds. So if you're a fan, you can look at 5 different feeds. As we go along, we intend to do more of these. So we're actively taking steps in this direction. Obviously not as far advanced as the MLB is in the US, but we will see more of this. And again, also we are doing stuff where we put all the games of a particular league on our player service. And we're looking to do that on different other devices as well. So you can, if you're a fan of, say, a particular European football league, you can actually go and watch all of those games. Because I think in addition to localization, in addition to, developing local sports which are going to become more and more popular, providing a high level of choice across the board is something which has been a fundamental point that has enabled pay TV to grow, and that will continue.
But doesn't the whole notion of personalization, technology, access, again, put this whole question of localization, up for debate? Today you can live anywhere in the world and follow your team, and I think as all of us have encountered, fans wherever they live, if they're passionate about a team, are as knowledgeable as someone down the street. Doesn't matter, So fans of a team or a sport are everywhere and are incredibly intense and familiar with everything about that team, and you now can do that from any particular point. So does it really change, CK, the business ultimately? Are we, looking at a future situation where it doesn't really matter how much is developed locally? Is it better to just invest in providing better access and improved experience for sports coming elsewhere? Is that a better return as opposed to trying to develop, the local leagues?
I think it's two-pronged. The sports development is still important to build out the local fan base. And, as you want to get access from anywhere to watch the local games, we have actually embarked on that. We have launched Astro on the Go International, where, in this case, we own the worldwide rights for the domestic football league. Let's say if you're Malaysian and you're in London, you want to catch your team playing this weekend, you can watch it on our OTT service.
So you think, in terms of sports, I think this is, this sounds funny coming from a sports person, but, Conor, do we have too many sports, right? Is it going to be consolidation? How many different football leagues can we ultimately have? Is it are we better off maximizing the ones that really resonate and improving those access points, that experience, or are we better off just expanding? I think this is, you worry a little bit about time, space, attention. Are we going in the wrong direction? Is Asia's future more about just having more interest in the sports that are already there?
Look, global sports are difficult for a broadcaster because the rights fees keep going up. The license terms are short. You've barely acquired the rights before you're having to renew again. They come with all sorts of commercial obligations. What Astro is doing is fantastic. Putting this focus on local sport, because you can do long-term partnerships. You can own the broadcast rights and the commercial opportunities, work with the sponsors, and it delivers one thing that I guess global sports can't really deliver, which is proximity. People can go to the event, they can have the entertainment in a stadium, they can share that experience with other fans. So it is, for local sports, it's an opportunity.
And Rohit, do you see this developing from a Fox Sports standpoint in terms of the local access, fans connecting more with teams and players? How much a part of things will that become, as you develop the business in the region? How crucial is that?
Well, I think it is going to become increasingly important, and but our landscape is rapidly evolving, but we have markets which are in different stages of development, right? I totally agree that if there is an opportunity for people to go and see a game, that is something that and that is well produced, that is well marketed, then you have a greater chance of building a stronger emotional connection, which will then translate into viewerships. So we're, as a business, looking at all kinds of opportunities, and there will be these opportunities to do these kind of things, and we will go after these aggressively, market by market, depending on what sports matter, how much, to what extent.
And how do you determine, which sports matter the most? It's a constantly moving target, and some of it is how, I think the NBA is a good example, where it's really built the last few years to have a much more significant profile than it did, despite not having, outside of Yao Ming, a lot of Asian players. So, is this always predictable?
I don't think it is, but to the point which Dino made earlier, we got to do more in-depth analysis and understand our markets and our consumers better. The more we're able to do that, there will be a better chance of picking out sports or in opportunities that haven't been tapped as yet, that have future potential, and also looking at the commercial aspect of it. To what extent is a commercial framework exist in a particular market to facilitate that development? Because you can, go and invest and do things, but if there is no commercial framework, and the US is a great example where you have strong franchises, whether you look at the NBA, all of these teams, they want to make money, and they're very well run. They have very strong, developed frameworks of operating across media rights, commercial tickets. So it is something that there are various trigger points, and it's not, there's no easy answer to it, but I think you have to be in a market, understanding your consumers a lot more, and trying to, that will help to identify where the investment should go.
Let's try that against the floor. Anybody got any other questions you want to chuck into the panel now? It's a good opportunity. Any questions about brands or channels or global, local? But I have a quick question. Jim, you're based in Beijing.
Actually, Tokyo.
Oh, Tokyo. I'm sorry.
I spent a lot of time in Beijing.
But my point was, you're out of the sort of Southeast Asia area. So, as a brand that comes from the US, where do you see the opportunities? So you're in Tokyo. Some folks are in Beijing. Some folks are in different places. Where are the pockets that you're really trying to pull out in Asia?
I think that there's, again, for us, the difficult thing is baseball is not an inherently easy sport to understand. So, the beautiful thing about soccer, one of many things, is that it is pretty simple. There is a boundary. If the ball goes outside the boundary, it's out of bounds, and there's a goal. And people can at a very early age understand it. You try to explain the infield fly rule to most Americans who know baseball, and they look at you like this. So it takes time to do it. It's not going to be something that can be done quickly. So our strategy is to really grow a generation of people who have been exposed to the game and who understand the game. So in Southeast Asia, I think a couple markets where we see opportunities in Thailand and the Philippines, particularly in the Philippines, where baseball was a very popular sport for many, many years. But it's going to take time. We have to put bats and balls in kids' hands, and our future market really may not even be born yet. So that's the mentality we have, and the horizon that we have to have, is to look long term.
I'm just going to put someone else on the spot with another global brand. As far as NBA is concerned, Geraldine's here from NBA. How do you see this whole process, Geraldine?
Meaning? Global versus local. Well, thanks for the highlight, and thanks, Mike, for mentioning what we are doing in the region. That picture of our Shanghai game last year between the Clippers and the Miami Heat, highlight very well what we are doing in terms of bringing mass participation events to Asia, making sure that our fan can have a way to experience the NBA. Because as much as you can watch it on TV, there is nothing like being in the arena and having the full experience. On the top of that, as you know, we are bringing a lot of, local events, like we just brought NBA 3X in the market, with the support of Startup. And this is what we have been doing, for the past years, is working closely with our TV broadcaster to have the right programming, the right support in terms of logistics as well for the event that we are doing with the support of the governmental entities.
A question back to you, Jim, on China. You mentioned before that in developing China, the reference point isn't the U.S. for baseball in China.
Yeah, I think we're very fortunate. I think we have a real opportunity because baseball was popular in China until the Cultural Revolution. It was removed by the chairman, who was evidently not a baseball fan. But most Chinese look at baseball as an Asian sport, not as an American sport, and I think that's a huge benefit for us. I think we have the exact opposite, particularly in Europe, where we've been investing for a long time. We're starting to make some traction, but it's been a long hoe because we are looked at as an American brand and sometimes too American. We don't have that issue in China.
CK, from a digital media standpoint, we've talked about personalization and access. How disruptive is digital, OTT, which is coming? How disruptive is that potentially to Astro's sports offering?
As a broadcaster, like I mentioned yesterday, we see it as digital will complement our linear service. From second screen application where you can interact with your fans, or you could be the director at home choosing what you want to watch, choosing what camera angles you want to watch at. So yes, we are getting into that space, and we will adopt it. Because this is no escaping that this is going to be the future.
Conor, you've talked about the OTT offering about Setanta in a couple different cases. You might argue now you already are OTT, right? You could argue that, what's the definition of OTT? I mean, is that a path for you guys as you develop the business? I mean, is that, ultimately where you prioritize and how you design Setanta in terms of its growth?
Look, we've fully embraced OTT. We've got our OTT product in Asia. You can watch the linear channel or personalize to watch your club additional games live. In Australia, we've really adopted it in the sense that we offered it as a standalone, or you can have it bundled with the channel. And we've taken a really integrated approach to how we market it. We have lots of on-air promos and idents telling you what's coming up on the OTT player, Setanta Sports Plus, so that people think of it. We're not really trying to promote it as an OTT service or a channel anymore. We're just promoting the content and letting the customer choose how they want to watch it.
Any questions from the audience? We're closing down to the next few minutes, so any questions?
Over here. Hold on a second.
Melissa here from StarHub. Question for Rohit. If Fox Sports is going to develop more on the local sports arena, market by market, would that not, in theory, put you in competition with all the local platforms that you would be on as well?
I think our approach is that, one, we have a network of channels. So in each and every market we have at least three channels, and within that construct what we want to do is Fox Sports 1, that will be our highly localized channel. And if you look at any particular market, I think our approach is to be a strong complement to our platforms. So in a market you might have 5 different local opportunities which are out there. We might develop 2, our platform partners might develop the other 3. At the end of the day, what we're looking to be is to be relevant market by market, because that's going to define the level to which we can grow our business. It's also going to predicate how our platform partners are going to look at us to be able to increase our revenues. So I think what we do is we are developing very market by market localized business. And the beauty which we have is that we're doing this across various markets. So whether that's Asia or whether that's outside of Asia. So I think this is where we're not in any way, I don't see us, we're not, the market is big enough for a channel group which has channels that are relevant to consumers in every market that it operates, to work in close coordination with the platforms. And ever since we have been engaged with this business, we've spoken with platforms across various markets, and many of them have expressed an interest to actively engage with us in this area, because it's something that they see as a common goal. Because the more we can work together to develop multiple local sports, make the international leagues more relevant, I think that will increase the overall viewership of sports channels, which is, people have mentioned earlier today, is one of the challenges that the market faces.
Just as we wrap up, one last question, prediction. I'll start with you, Conor. I don't think it's going to be a local answer. Prediction for the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup coming up next summer. Any local teams make it to the semifinals?
It's very difficult, I think. I immediately thought of Ireland, who, if we finish third in the group for qualification, that's when we start to celebrate. Our fortunes have sunk so low. Australia's in the process of rebuilding. We all remember the World Cup in 2002 and the run of Korea and everything, and just what that did. It was magical. It would be a wonderful thing to see, but very difficult, I think.
So Germany or Brazil then?
The usual suspects, I think.
Jim?
Just a closing comment on mainly just on what I've learned from the last couple of days and just this convergence of media and on different platforms and whatnot. And I'm just struck that the most important players over the next 5 or 10 years, probably not the content providers, but it's going to be the technology companies. It's going to be, the Samsungs and the Microsofts and people like that, because we're going to follow them as a content provider wherever they go, and however they can deliver our content to the viewers or to our fans, our customers, is going to be where we're going to go. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few years.
But Jim, isn't it driven by the passion that the fans have for the sport rather than the technology?
No, but the key, and that's a good point, but the key is our fans will go where it's most convenient for them to get that. So we have to be there, and so we have to make sure that we're striking them where they want their content. And that's not me telling anybody where it is. It's going to be somebody at Samsung and Seoul right now who comes up with a new application that's going to help us continue that connection with our customer and enhance that connection with our customer.
CK, what sporting event are you looking most forward to over the next 12 months?
For the next 12 months, of course, next year will be the FIFA World Cup. And because we're going to do it in a big way, we're going to have 5 channels running. We're going to have the second screen application. And we're going to have road shows all around, viewing parties. So it'll be a big carnival in Kuala Lumpur and all the other states in Malaysia.
And predictions? Who's winning?
For me, I'll think Brazil or Germany will make it this time.
Okay. Rohit, any predictions and anything you're looking forward to in terms of sporting event over the next year or so?
I think, in terms of sporting events, obviously next year will be the FIFA World Cup, which will be the biggest sporting event. And it'll be another, interesting case study to see to what extent the viewership grows over last time. Right? We have lots of big events coming up, and one of the big things that we are looking forward to next year is the entire rebrand of our network. So that will happen sometime in the first quarter of next year. So it could be around the Australian Open or another event.
And any predictions for the World Cup?
Well, I think I agree with CK, but I think it will be probably Germany this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Nice round of applause for our panel here.
Thank you very much.